All right, let's take you live now to Atlanta, Georgia, where the district attorney involved in the latest indictments of Donald Trump and his team is speaking there following those earlier indictments. Let's just listen in to what she has to say.
With the prosecutors and investigators who have worked diligently on the investigation of criminal attempts to interfere in the administration of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. Today, based on information developed by that investigation, a Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state. The indictment includes 41 felony counts and is 97 pages long. Please remember that everyone charged in this bill of indictment is presumed innocent. Specifically, the indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani, John Charles Eastman, Mark Randall Meadows, John Cheeseborough, Jeffrey Clark, Jenna Lynn Ellis, Ray Stallings Smith III, Robert David Cheeley, Michael A. Roman, David James Schaefer, Sean Micah Tresher Steele, Stephen Cliffgard Lee, Harrison William Prescott Floyd, Travion C. Cootie, Sydney Catherine Powell, Kathleen Austin Latham, Scott Graham Hall, and Misty Hampton, also known as Emily Misty Hayes. Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21. Specifically, the participants in association took various actions in Georgia and elsewhere to block the counting of the votes of the presidential electors who were certified as the winners of Georgia's 2020 general election. As you examine the indictment, you will see acts that are identified as overt acts and those that are identified as predicate acts, sometimes called acts of racketeering activity. Overt acts are not necessarily crimes under Georgia law in isolation, but are alleged to be acts taken in furtherance of the conspiracy. Many occurred in Georgia, and some occurred in other jurisdictions and are included because the grand jury believes they were part of the illegal effort to overturn the results of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. The acts identified as predicate acts or acts of racketeering activity are crimes that are alleged to have been committed in furtherance of the criminal enterprise. Acts of racketeering activity are also charged as separate counts in the indictment against those who are alleged to have committed them. All elections in our nation are administered by these states, which are given the responsibility of ensuring a fair process and an accurate counting of the votes. That includes elections for presidential electors, Congress, state officials, and local offices. The state's role in this process is essential to the functioning of our democracy. Georgia, like every state, has laws that allow those who believe that results of an election are wrong, whether because of intentional wrongdoing or unintentional error, to challenge those results in our state courts. The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result. Subsequent to the indictment, as is the normal process in Georgia law, the grand jury issued arrest warrants for those who are charged. I am giving the defendants the opportunity to voluntarily surrender no later than noon on Friday, the 25th day of August, 2023. I remind everyone here that an indictment is only a series of allegations based on a grand jury's determination of probable cause to support the charges. It is now the duty of my office to prove these charges in the indictment beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. I would like to take a moment to thank the Superior Court Clerk, Shay Alexander, and her staff for staying late and making sure that this indictment was processed. I would also like to thank the men and women of Sheriff Labatt's office for keeping the courthouse open, but most importantly for keeping us safe over the weeks and months that have led up to this indictment, and for what I know they will continue to do to keep us safe. We also want to thank the Atlanta Police Department and other law enforcement partners who have worked with the sheriff to keep us safe. I will now take a very limited number of questions prior to going to sleep.
I'll go first.
Madam District Attorney.
If you don't mind, Surveil 11 to 11 alive. Quick question. Can you clarify in Georgia the mandatory minimum when it comes to RICO charges, whether it's servable by probation or how that might play out?
The RICO charges has time that you have to serve, so it is not a probated sentence.
Madam District Attorney, what's the timetable for the trial?
What is the timetable for the trial?
Yes.
As you know, in this jurisdiction, trials are set by the judges, and so it will be the judge that sets the date of the trial. This office will be submitting a proposed scheduling order within this week. However, that will totally be at the discretion of the judge.
And one of you, you're the fourth person, fourth jurisdiction now to indict you be the fourth one to try him, or should you move it up? Do you want to be the first to try him?
I don't have any desire to be first or last. I want to try him and be respectful for our sovereign states. We do want to move this case along, and so we will be asking for a proposed order that occurs a trial date within the next 6 months.
Madam District Attorney, there was earlier today there was a fictitious document, according to the Fulton County Clerk's Office, that was circulated online with charges against former President Donald Trump. That fictitious document matched exactly the charges that we now see in this indictment. Can you tell us more about that document leak? Because now you have the former president's lawyers who are saying this is emblematic of a serious problem with your office.
No, I can't tell you anything about what you refer to. What I can tell you is that we had a grand jury here in Fulton County. They deliberated till almost 8 o'clock, if not right after 8 o'clock. An indictment was returned. It was true billed, and you now have an indictment. I am not an expert on clerks' duties or even administrative duties. I wouldn't know how to work that system, and so I'm not going to speculate. Next question.
Have you had any contact with the special counsel about overlap between these cases, and do you intend to try all of these defendants together?
Do I intend to try the 19 defendants in this indictment together? Yes.
And have you had any contact with the special counsel about the overlap between this indictment and the federal indictment?
I'm not going to discuss our investigation at this time. I'm going to take...
What do you make of the arguments made by former President Trump that this is a politically motivated?
I make decisions in this office based on the facts and the law. The law is completely nonpartisan. That's how decisions are made in every case. To date, this office has indicted, since I've been sitting as a district attorney, over 12,000 cases. This is the 11th RICO indictment. We followed the same process. We look at the facts, we look at the law, and we bring charges.
Have there been conversations about the charges?
Did you try this case yourself?
Has the jury been clear?
So you're watching live pictures there from Atlanta, Georgia, of Fani Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, giving us some more details of those indictments handed down. She said those named in the indictment attempted to interfere with the administration process of the Georgia 2020 presidential election results. She said 19 people have been charged in connection with violation of Georgia's election law. She said 41 felony counts were brought, 97 pages long, so quite a substantial document. She named all the defendants, including former President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, his lawyer, and Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff. She reminded the press conference that indictments are a series of allegations and that they are all innocent until proven guilty. So live pictures there of that press conference coming from Atlanta, Georgia. Now, the former president's campaign team have just released this statement on Trump's social media platform, Truth Social, attacking the Georgia prosecutor leading the investigation over election interference. It says, Georgia's radical Democrat district attorney, Fani Willis, is a rabid partisan who is campaigning and fundraising on a platform of prosecuting President Trump through these bogus indictments. A quick response from Trump there. John Hendren joins us live now from Atlanta. John, so interestingly, we got some more detail there from Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA, about these indictments. What more did she have to say?
Well, she outlined a widespread conspiracy. She said every one of those 19 people who are accused of crimes was accused of playing a role in a massive conspiracy to steal the presidential election in the state of Georgia. Those charges included such things as forgery, making false verbal statements, making false written statements, harassing and intimidating poll workers. And there was also a breach of data in Coffee County, Georgia, in which people who worked in the election office invited in the pro-Trump officials who came in and then physically scanned those votes. So that's included among the charges. They're saying that was an illegal seizure. So this is a wide-ranging conspiracy. And, you know, in the U.S., you don't actually, in a presidential election, directly elect the president. You elect that person through electors. And what they're alleging happened in Georgia is that the Trump team tried to substitute its own slate of electors who they hoped would then turn the election for Donald Trump instead of Joe Biden. And there's no precedent for having done that. So those people are named as members of this wide-ranging conspiracy. But also among those people are people who pressured officials in Georgia in order to get them to help them with this conspiracy. There's Rudolph Giuliani, who testified in front of the Georgia Senate, saying that there was an attempt to steal this election, specifically naming poll workers and showing a heavily edited video in which he said they were handing each other a thumb drive with votes that they were going to insert. When those two poll workers were asked exactly what they were handing to each other in that very fuzzy video, they said it was a mint.
John, I think I'm right in saying there was also one count of racketeering. This is an extremely serious charge, isn't it?
That racketeering charge is the most serious. If you look on the category of what those charges are, that one says a serious felony. All the rest just say felonies. Why is it serious? It comes with a penalty of 20 years in prison, a minimum penalty of 5 years in prison. So with a charge like that hanging over people's head, you can bet that some people have flipped and reported on the former president's activities, and that some others may likely either flip or try to do so in order to reduce the charges against them and get rid of that very serious charge. For someone like Rudolph Giuliani, who is an old man now, that is a death sentence. So very serious charge, and one that's kind of a trademark for this particular prosecutor. She also used that racketeering charge against the Atlanta school system, alleging a widespread cheating scandal that hurt particularly minority students. So that racketeering charge, which is usually used only to pursue organized crime, in this case is being used rather creatively, but creatively in a way that this particular district attorney has done before. It remains to be seen whether in a case this high profile that will be effective.
John, just a quick one before you go. I mean, let's remind our viewers, this is now Trump's fourth set of indictments. Remind us quickly of the other three. And how is all of this likely then to affect his run for the White House next year? Just quickly, John.
Well, the quick answer to that is the more he gets indicted, the higher his poll numbers go among Republicans and the more money he raises. It's a perverse thing, but that's what's going on. But he also has a case in New York State, another state case in which he's accused of a scheme to pay off and with hush money a former porn star. Then he's got a federal charge in Washington for his activities in trying to overturn the election. One in Florida, also federal, mishandling documents. And then you've got this wide-ranging case in Georgia. Those will, some of them, perhaps be finished before the election, perhaps be finished after, but none of them disqualifies him under the U.S. Constitution for being president. There's an argument to be made that if someone commits treason, they are not allowed to be president, but these crimes aren't specifically listed as treason, so that would be contested in court as well.
OK, John Hendren, live for us there in Atlanta, Georgia. John, thank you.